Now, we're going to bring you, a little later than planned, our prospective guest on the programme today. And it's been described as an astonishing personal testimony and as well as an impassioned plea for the future of our children. The book Pauvre is the story of author Katriona O'Sullivan. She grew up in abject poverty and chaos in a family of 5 children. She became pregnant and homeless at just 15 years old, and there followed 5 years of barely surviving. And yet not only has she survived and indeed thrived, she's also become an academic, published her book as well, which has now been translated, as you saw there, into French, quite literally, as Pauvre, and she presented it last night, in fact, at the Irish Cultural Centre here in Paris, and she joins me here in a set. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us. First of all, then, just tell us about your childhood, and therefore, I assume at the same time, you're going to be telling us about the book, because that's what the book's about, isn't it?
Yeah, I grew up in the middle of England in the 80s. And I was the daughter of 2 intravenous heroin addicts. I describe my childhood as being marked by hunger. I was hungry for food, but also for a hug, for love, for somebody to teach me that I was valuable, and how to regulate my emotions. And my story is, I suppose, my journey through education and life, and how I was mistreated, I suppose, by the services and systems as well as my family, but eventually found my way into university as a young woman and discovered that what we teach poor girls and poor boys sometimes about themselves is actually not true. And I'm really intelligent and really capable. And so, but my childhood was marked by a lot of trauma and a lot of poverty.
How difficult was it? I mean, what was the worst aspects of it like? We'll talk about the worst first, then we'll be positive.
I think the insecurity of knowing what was going to happen every day, visiting prisons, witnessing my mum prostituting herself, like the insecurity of not knowing what was going to happen in my home. Children who live in extreme poverty, which is prevalent in every country, are more at risk of abuse as well. So I suffered abuse in lots of different ways. But I think the worst part was not actually feeling that I was loved, and thinking that was something to do with me, that I had done something wrong as little children. We internalize the world. I'm a psychologist now, so I understand how the human mind works. As little children, we think that what happens in the world is to do with who we are. And if the world loves us and treats us well, we think we're good. But if it doesn't, we think we're bad. And I think the worst part of my childhood was thinking that there was something wrong with me, or I'd done something wrong because the world didn't treat me right.
And as you say, you're far from alone. I mean, those kind of stories were going on when you were growing up. They're still going on now.
They're growing now. So the incidence of poverty across the world, in France, in the UK, in Ireland, where actually the distance between the rich and the poor is growing. And actually children are living in the type of poverty I lived in, right where we are now, probably 10 minutes away from the studio. And so my book is the story of, it's not poverty in the sense of, it's not a grim story. It's full of light. Even despite the fact that I had a lot of trauma, I also had a lot of love and a lot of light. There's a lot of joy in poverty as well, and a lot of music. So my story is, I suppose, the different experiences of that. But it really shines a light on how we can help children, and the things that happened to me along my childhood that helped me actually realise that I was good, and I was capable, and I was a brilliant young kid.
So how did you dig your way out of it?
I think I didn't. That's the whole message of the story, is that I actually couldn't have done this on my own. Hard work is a myth. We teach it to young children. If you work hard, you can do better. And the reality is I couldn't have worked any harder than I was. But what I had was brilliant teachers along my childhood who actually fed me, washed me, and told me I was brilliant. They told me I was good at English, they told me I was good at sports, and then people along my childhood gave me enough self-esteem to keep going. And then as an adult, I think all poor women will ask for help, especially when you're a mother. I didn't want to be the same as my own mother, and I was, but I asked for help, and when I asked for help, I was met with all these services and supports. So I was given mental health supports immediately as soon as I asked for help. That was the most important thing at first. And then I was offered the opportunity to participate in education, and it was free and it was supported. There was childcare attached to it. And through them government policies and then programs and then people, I was able to access education equally like everybody else did. And when the conditions were made correct, I learnt this brilliant lesson that I'm actually really good. Actually, not just good, I'm really intelligent. Because the reality is I left school at 15 with no qualifications, and I thought thought that it meant that I was stupid. Nobody ever taught me that your education is impacted by what your family life is like or how much money you have in your community. So I thought we were all the same, and because I failed, I thought it meant I wasn't very clever. And
so is that why you wanted to write the book then? To make that point and to show other people that there is another way?
I did, yeah. I feel really privileged. When you read my book, you might feel sad for me, but I feel really privileged that I'm one of the few girls that's escaped her destiny. Poverty is a destiny. It reproduces itself in the same way privilege does, and I've escaped it. And so when I was asked to write my book, I thought I can actually help. I can actually tell people what we can do to ensure that everybody who is brilliant gets a chance to demonstrate that to the world. And the truth is, the reason I decided now to tell my story is because if it was today, and if I asked the question today, is this it for me? The services are gone. We're cutting supports for social services, for community supports, for education. Everything is being squeezed. And so for me, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to do this today. So I've told my story to remind people of the importance of helping and providing help. It's not charity. I'm a brilliant academic, by the way. I've published in Nature. I love saying that because it's not something that you do.
Yeah.
And it's very rare even in academia. So it's not charity. Providing support to poor children or poor adults, it's not about charity. It's about ensuring excellence gets an opportunity. And my book is a call for that. It's a reminder.
Yeah. I loved the review that I saw calling it the impassioned plea for the future of our children. I mean, does that sum it up for you?
Exactly.
It must have felt great when you read those words.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic to read the reviews, but it's even better to have people who read my book reach out to me and tell me thank you for being a voice and reminding me that maybe I didn't fail in my own life. But it is a plea, and it's also it's a demand. It's not just a plea; it's a demand. I really think it's a responsibility of people who are in positions of power to make sure that everybody gets a chance to shine. And it's not because we're broken, because I'm a really skilled person. It's because we need good people in employment, good people in education, diverse voices in order to create great products and practices and increase the economy. It always surprises me that I suppose governments or people who work in making political decisions don't recognise that when we empower poor people to participate, it increases the economy. It doesn't actually reduce it. So this is a no-brainer for me to provide supports to people like myself to shine.
How do we start doing it? I mean, what's going wrong? Is it political decisions that need to change, or is it the way individual families, individual people interact with each other? I mean, what are the solutions?
I think there's lots of solutions. It depends on which way you want to look at it. So I think, and it depends what age group you're looking at. So I would focus a lot on education because for me, that's what transformed the way I feel about myself and I think about the world. I think education now is so important because we need people to be thinking critically about information. And that was the gift I was given. But I would, first things first is I provide teachers with an understanding of poverty and the ability to provide care. We have squeezed the education so much. We're so measured in terms of our literacy and our numeracy that we forget that sometimes the teacher's job is to provide an environment that's secure for students to feel safe. So the first things I would do is provide teachers with the space to be able to care. That's the thing that changed my life. The other things then is to think about joined up policies to make sure that a person can find their way through education and employment really easily. So a lone parent, they need free education or a grant system. They need childcare support, secure housing and mental health supports. Sometimes you have to sacrifice one thing to get access to another thing. So it's about having that joined up thinking. And I think politically, we have been in a time where we've cut services. When there's pressure on an economy, the first thing that goes is support for poor services. So for me, I think that is a bad way of doing political decisions because we need to engage those on the margins to be able to work. So in terms of childcare supports, free education, but for me, what changed my life was people. Like I met people in support services that were kind, that made me feel valuable, that provided a light in me, that made it possible for me to think differently about myself. I think we forget about that. We're so metricized now that we measure everything. And sometimes it's just a moment. Yeah. And giving people the moment.
Just time to ask you, I mean, imagine yourself now in your toughest moments. Imagine you're that child now. I mean, could you ever imagine that you would have written a book, done all the other things you've talked about doing, be appearing at an Irish cultural centre in Paris to promote your book and talking on the television about it?
Absolutely not. The thing that is really sad about growing up in poverty is what you get to dream is limited by your experiences in childhood. If I'd have decided my life for me, this was never in that, because my dreams were limited by my experiences. I wake up every day and I'm like, this is an amazing life. And I just want other young people who grew up next to me to be able to experience this too. That's the saddest part of this, is that I'm not the most brilliant kid who comes from my community. There were girls and boys much better than me, and they're in prison or dead now. So I feel obviously really joyful, but also really sad, because I think there should be more of us sitting here. It shouldn't be a unique story that sells across the world, because it should be common, and it's not.
Well, hopefully you've spread a little bit more happiness. I'm certainly feeling a lot happier having spoken to you on the programme this morning. Katriona O'Sullivan, thanks very much for coming in and talking to us. As I said there, the book in English is called Pauvre, just out in French. There it is for you on the screen, called Pauvre as well. So there you go. You've heard the story. Now you can go out and find out a lot more about it by buying the book.